Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So I started a little bit earlier. Always I plan my lives, and something either happens to delay it, or I suddenly realise I can do it a little bit earlier. And it's always better to start it earlier because the longer I leave it, something always could happen to jeopardise it. So, let me just got all the style has changed on my streamer. I don't like that blue colour. Let's get rid of that. Don't need my name on there. I think you all know who I am. I hope so. If you're new to the channel, welcome. But I am Vicky Marie, as it says there. But I'm going to take that off because most people know that I'm Vicky Marie. So what we're going to talk about in this video is we're just going to talk about the latest. It's not loads to say, but the latest developments in the Gus Lamont case. I am going to stick with this. One thing I've noticed, not lots of YouTubers covering this case. I've covered it right from the beginning. I'm going to stick with it. I want to see this little boy found. Very sadly, the police have told us they think this boy is deceased. This is Gus, 4 years of age, disappeared off his family's sprawling sheep station in Yunta in Australia. Can't get much more remote than where this little boy lived with his two GMAs and his mum. And the circumstances are unclear as to who was actually with Gus when he went missing. So originally it was thought to be his GMA Shannon, who was looking after him and his little brother, and she left him alone for half an hour, according to her. Fancy leaving a 4-year-old on her own for 30 minutes, playing outside on a big heap of sand on a Saturday evening, round about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, evening. And then when she went back to call him in for his tea, he was gone. That was the official story, her story. As time's gone on now, a couple of weeks ago, the police announced they were treating it as a major crime. They did not believe the GMA's story. The people had started changing their account of what happened. They found these discrepancies in what was said, and they had no evidence that Gus had wandered away as was originally thought. They had no evidence that Gus was abducted. So in their opinion, the answers lie with that, at home. The answers lie at home, and they made a person a suspect, but they didn't name who it was. But it'd be one of the GMAs, isn't it? So we've got this very strange, I say strange, you can't say strange because, who's to say what's normal and what isn't normal, but unconventional, let's say, family dynamics, because one of Gus's GMAs was in fact a GPAR at one point, though technically never was a GPAR to Gus, because transitioned to be a GMA long before Gus was born, about 10 years ago. So Josie was born a man, but transitioned to be a woman, and but stayed living with her wife, who is, let me just put this up, her wife Shannon, who is Gus's mum Jessica. Oh, that didn't come up, did it? Let's put these. So, yeah, this is this very straight. These are the two GMAs. You've got Josie with the blonde wig on, and then you've got Shannon, who looks like, the bag lady. I don't feel like I have to be respectful because these women are at the centre of what happened to Gus. So I don't have any respect for them. I don't feel any sympathy for them. The police have made it clear that one of those two ladies is their prime suspect, And in my opinion, if one of them knows what happened to Gus, they both know what's happened to Gus. So Josie's gun happy. She's just been charged with weapons offences. She also used a weapon to chase off a Daily Mail reporter who had the temerity to go round there, which must have been irritating. But this family have at no point engaged the media's help in finding this little boy. Look at the Nancy Guthrie case. You've had the family on appealing for help, whoever's taken their loved one, Nancy. There's been no appeals from this family. They released one statement right in the beginning, but they released it through a family friend. They didn't even read that out themselves. So there's been no appeals for help. Only one photograph has ever been supplied, which is this one of Gus when he went to the meeting for his preschool in March. So apart from this photo, nobody would have, if it wasn't, nobody would even know what Gus looked like or anything about him. So the police have declared it a major crime. They think that Gus is deceased. They don't know, obviously, if it was murder or if it's an accidental death, but they're convinced he's dead. And they're convinced one of these women has got something to do with it. In my personal opinion, they both know exactly what has happened. And it's disgusting what they're doing, because it's bad enough when you cover up a crime, your own grandchild. And what's it doing to their daughter? That she's not only had to find out from the police that Gus is likely to be deceased, but the people who know about it and who are responsible for it are her own parents. God, it's time to come clean. It's time to come clean, you two. Anyway, I'm going to get into it now. So I just what I'm going to talk about now is the police are really concentrating their search on the homestead now and any other buildings connected to this family. And they've explored areas of freshly laid cement. They've brought in a cadaver dog. They're trying their best to find Gus. They are convinced that Gus is there somewhere, and I agree with them. I think he is, but where? Who knows? And it isn't difficult to hide a little body in these. It is a bit like searching for a needle in a haystack, but I'm confident that they will find out. And really, what should be happening is that these 70-odd-year-old grandparents of Gus should be coming clean and telling the police where Gus is and what really happened. And their daughter, Gus's mum, deserves to know what happened to her son. Anyway, just before I get into it properly, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. Remember, as always, let me know in comments what you think about all this. But don't forget to like, to subscribe, and to press notifications. Special thank you to my members and those of you who've bought me Ko-Fi, sent super form. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's now I'm going to say hello to you lovely lurkers. Love you all so much. Replay crew, thank you for watching. And let's go into the chat and see who's in the chat. A few people chatting. So, hi David, hi Lily, hi Snoopy, hi Mark, good to see you all. Hi Dark Cry. Hearing us was yeah, Dark Ride, that is true. There's been conflicting reports, hasn't there? The initial reports were, as you say, that Shannon and Jessica were at the sheep shearing station. Josie was at home. Then it changed, didn't it? And it became Shannon that was at home. And we've said on here, no disrespect to Shannon, but she doesn't look, looking after a toddler and a baby. It's hard work. You can't keep an eye on them all the time. And to leave a toddler on their own, Gus, 4 years old. Oh, shoot. One minute he was there playing on the sand pit, in the sand pit or whatever, on the heap of sand. 30 minutes later, before she went out and checked on him. A toddler. Oh my God. Anything could have happened. If that is true, anything could have happened. I myself have my own theories about the weapons around that home. I would not be surprised if Gus had an accident with a gun, if he thought he was going to play cowboys and Indians or whatever. Or I wouldn't even be surprised if Josie, because of her aggressiveness, if there was some sort of incident and Josie just lost her temper. That's how I'm feeling at the moment. I feel that it's to do with Josie rather than Shanann. But I feel like it could be an accident or it could be deliberate. I just don't know. Yeah, a lot of these narratives have changed, haven't they? Yeah, exactly. So, what is the truth? Now, the only truth we know is Gus has disappeared. We know that it's been treated as a major crime. We know that Josie has been arrested and charged with weapons offences, though the police were at pains to say wasn't directly connected with the disappearance of Gus, and also that it wasn't directly connected with the incident with the Daily Mail reporter when Josie lost her temper, went out there with a pump action shotgun. I mean, that's what do you need a pump action shotgun for? It's like if a lot of places, I can see why you would have weapons to protect yourself on these remote places. But pump action shotgun, it's a bit dramatic, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway, I think she had more weapons than that. Some people are obsessed with guns. Now, something else that I want to say before we look into this properly, and this will be contentious. But listen, anyone who knows me and has watched my channel will know I don't think of people being more susceptible to committing crime, like because they're an immigrant or because they're this or that. But there's just been another incident in America of a transgender male killing their family or a hockey game in public after a family dispute. I'm not saying that all trans people are raving murderers, but is it because of the mental illness that, at the end of the day, when people are trans, it's normally because of, what's it called, body dysmorphia, or, they'll have, anyone who's been brought up as a gender that is not how they feel they are, they're going to have some mental issues, aren't they? Is this something that should be discussed? Is there not exactly, there'll be loads of transgender people out there living their lives quietly, and I think a lot of transgender people, they don't want people, they want to be accepted as a woman, not as a trans woman or man, because it can go the other way as well. They want to be accepted as what they feel they are. So they don't want a big fuss about it, a big hullabaloo about it. It's like people who are gay, they just want to be normal people living their lives. They don't want to be, noticed, or they just want to be, just to fit into what they feel happy with. It's a very delicate subject because if you even bring it up at all, people can get quite angry about it. But personally, and I say this with all honesty and with all respect to anybody, I think there's an issue here that needs to be addressed. There's a shooting in Canada just a couple of weeks ago. Again, is it even the tablets maybe that people go on when they go into transition that contribute to some sort of psychotic break or whatever? Because it could be that. I just think it's something that needs looking at, and just as mental health generally needs looking at, and I don't mean to upset anybody by that or be, I'm accepting of anybody for what they are, as long as they are accepting as well, of course. We all have to accept each other for ethnicity, religion, sexuality. But sometimes things have to be looked at. Um, this just, I don't know, the aggression of Josie towards that Daily Mail reporter was completely off the wall. Shannon apparently had already said to the reporter, look, we don't want to talk. We don't want to talk. That's all you have to say, isn't it? A reporter turns up at your door. You'd be fuming maybe because you've said we don't want any reporters turning up at the door. That Daily Mail reporter just went there without having an invitation or an appointment. And I would be annoyed, but I wouldn't go out with a shotgun. That's an extreme, isn't it? So apparently Shannon had already said, look, we don't want to talk, please go, but in a polite way, please go away. And the Daily Mail reporter was leaving. And that's when Josie came roaring out with the shotgun that later she said that was to shoot a snake on the porch. I mean, there's still a baby, or I think there was still a baby in that house then. I presume Jessica was still there then. I don't know when Jessica left the property. What you doing walking around brandishing a pump action shotgun for, just to shoot a snake even? Why? Just, extreme. So I do think it's something that needs looking at, and I know people maybe are going to criticise me for saying that, but that's my right to say it. That's how I feel. It needs looking at. Exactly. Medication, steroids, possibly. Because a lot of people that are on steroids for muscle building and things like that, they've been involved with incidents and the steroids, roid rage, they call it, don't they? So why can't we look at it? Because I don't know if I think I'm going to look at this case of this person in America at the hockey game. You talk about a father who's transitioned. Well, I don't know if he's completely transitioned, who dresses now as a woman, killing family members at a public hockey game. It's like, so this is, it's an extreme, isn't it? Shooting their own children. Anyway, just these things that I think about sometimes. Listen, hi Cameron, hi, you're from Australia, hi. Yes, there's lots of reasons why people get psychotic. Personally, there's a lot of cases of mental health in teenagers. I personally blame marijuana for a lot of that. And I'm sorry, I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen people be psychotic teenagers after smoking marijuana. And I've spoken to professionals who have said that marijuana affects young people's brains. And I think the thing is, ignoring it doesn't help. Look into it. Every time I see a case of a teenager, I don't know what had happened to them lately. They'd changed. Well, they probably started smoking marijuana, and they were, it's not. You can't just pretend it's not happening. It has to be looked at. It's just the same if they start drinking alcohol. If you start drinking alcohol at 12, 13, it's going to affect your brain in a different way than it's going to affect an adult whose brain is already developed. I think people don't understand mental illness enough, do they? And I mean, even the professionals will say mental illness has not really been researched enough, I don't think. They don't see how your brain, if you had cancer of I don't know, breast cancer or liver cancer or whatever, it's easily diagnosed at least. You have your scan and then you have your chemo but if you have like a mental illness, first of all, you can't bloody diagnose it. They don't know how to treat it. It's different for every person. And some kids can smoke marijuana at 15 or whatever, and it doesn't affect them. Then other kids get absolutely hooked on it and they're smoking it every day, all day, and not doing much else. And then they lose interest in everything else. And all that matters is the marijuana that they're smoking every day. Oh, you know what? It's so difficult. Mental illness is difficult. So it just makes me wonder, because I'll tell you what, if you are transgender, if you've been brought up as a gender that you never felt comfortable with, and you never felt like, one of the boys or one of the girls, or whatever, you never understood what your friends, that what they were going through, because you felt completely different, because you felt like you're in somebody else's body. That's not going to be good, is it, for your mental health? That's difficult to cope with. And then when you start on different medications, uh, how do these medications affect people's minds? All medications will affect you in one way or another. And again, probably different for different people. We know that antidepressive drugs, for example, something like a Prozac, it can work really well with one person. Now, I've known people who've taken Prozac, so it's the best thing that ever happens to them. They feel great, they lose weight, it's great. And then there's other people take Prozac and it sends them into a depressive decline. Maybe it's our uniqueness that makes it so difficult. But anyway, that's maybe for another video. I've had a little waffle about it all, but it just, especially after this hockey thing, just seems lately every case that I'm reading about is like, there's a transgender person at the heart of it, and you just think, is it just because they're the cases that are getting reported on more? Because that can have something to do with it. When the press, the media, when they see a case that involves a transgender person, they can push that more. Do you know what I mean? Because they know it'll get attention. So is that a reason as well? Maybe they're just giving more attention because it's a bit more boring if it's just your normal Joe Bloggs who's committed a crime, who's not transgender. There's all those things to take into account. What I'd like is to see is a proper investigation into it, and then with proper statistics, and then we can perhaps find out better about it. But the other thing is, as you're saying there, Cameron, I think not talking about it. It's like immigration in the UK. It has been a problem, but there's a lot of it that's what's the word, overemphasized. So what you need is, but you can't say, oh, we mustn't talk about immigration because you might offend somebody. It's not a question of not talking about it, not discussing it. It's got to be discussed in a rational way, hasn't it? That's all. Hello, my little dog's come to say hello. Okay, let's take this off, and then let's have a look at this first video about this. So basically, the police are there. They're at the homestead where Gus lived. They've taken a cadaver dog. Shh. They've taken a cadaver dog. They've investigated into some newly laid cement that they found there. They've looked in a water tank. They've gone off. They're going off to another place. They're really concentrating on it anyway. So hopefully they will find something. But will they? Oh, just one sec. Just one sec. Oh, I'll put this on actually. Oh, hang on. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I looked for it.
police say had been poured in the months after Gus's disappearance. While in the sky, a helicopter...
Sorry. Right, hang on. I thought I'd added it, but didn't.
Good evening. Detectives investigating the disappearance of 4-year-old Gus Lamont have today expanded their search, bringing in a cadaver dog and inspecting an area they say has freshly laid cement. Police focusing on a neighbouring property owned by the little boy's family and a nearby conservation park with recently discovered mine shafts.
Across a vast and unforgiving outback, a relentless pursuit for the truth behind a little boy's disappearance. Police today turning their attention to a new mid-north homestead a few dozen kilometres from Gus's home, where he vanished in September. This property also owned by a relative of the 4-year-old. A cadaver dog brought in from New South Wales to assist detectives. The Springer Spaniel specifically trained to detect human remains, walking around a shearing shed, inspecting a water tank, also sniffing around concrete police say had been poured in the months after Gus's disappearance. While in the sky, a helicopter ferrying detectives across remote sections of Puwalco Range.
So they just said there that the cement had been laid after Gus's disappearance. Now, the cadaver dog, I don't... Sorry, the dog's so crazy. I don't know if the cadaver dog can smell under concrete. Of course, they have that. Don't they have a radar now that they can go under concrete and things like that to detect bodies? Anyway, I've not heard anything yet about anything that's been found, but it's interesting. They're really concentrating their attention on the actual property now, aren't they? So they must have got a warrant to do that.
Conservation Park, south of Yunta. Officers inspecting several mine shafts there, recently discovered by police through artificial intelligence mapping technology. The renewed search for evidence comes as one of Gus's grandparents, Josie Murray, was arrested yesterday, charged with an unrelated firearms offence.
So there you go. There's Josie. Let's have another look at her. Now, she's 75. She looks very fit and healthy for that age. Unlike Shannon, who looks much more frail, doesn't she, Shannon? You know, you can't help but have a bad feeling about this case, because at the end of the day, unless they've taken Josie's weapons off her when she went to the police station, there's a lot of weapons around that home, and you know, you just get a bad feeling, don't you, about how it's all going to end up.
Charged with an unrelated firearms offence. 9 news cameras there as she was granted bail and allowed to drive back to their Oak Park homestead. Police also returning to the property with new hopes to uncover evidence. Only a fortnight ago, detectives revealed they no longer believe Gus simply wandered off or was abducted. His disappearance now a major crime investigation, police confirming they have a suspect. That person, investigators say, is someone who lives at Oak Park Station but is not either of the missing boy's parents.
Yeah, it was very cryptic what the police said, wasn't it? You know, the someone who lives there at the station, but not the parents, which only leaves these 2 GMAs. But they wonder why they didn't say which one was the suspect. Maybe they're both under suspicion. I would think that whatever one knows, the other one knows as well. That's just my personal opinion. But it's funny that the police didn't go far enough to say which one was the suspect, just sort of left it open like that, you know, like just not the parents. Definitely they were specific that it was not Jessica or Josh, is it his dad? Wasn't them. Now, just when you look at this this place, God, how are they going to... I mean, Gus, he could be anywhere, couldn't he, really? And anyway, well, I say he could be anywhere. I mean, they've got their ways and means of investigating with the dog and other equipment that they have as to identify places where he might be. But the thing is, even though there's no CCTV in this area, I think from whatever they've ascertained from data, etc., they don't think he's gone anywhere. Not only under his own volition, but he's not been abducted, and I don't think they think he's been taken anywhere. Although they did seize vehicles, didn't they? A motorbike in particular was taken. And sadly, what we always have to remember when little children go missing like this, it's not difficult to carry the body of a 4-year-old around. Literally could put them in a rucksack, probably. Whereas obviously adults are it's harder to carry bodies around and hide them. But it's a lot easier and they've had ages, because you know what? I think it was September the 31st when Gus was reported missing, and they'd probably already disposed of him. Before they reported him missing, I would imagine Gus had already been disposed of. So I think whatever happened did not happen on that day. Personally, I think it happened before, though we know that Gus was seen by a family friend a couple of weeks before, so maybe not too long before. But I expect whatever happened to Gus happened. They got rid of the body or whatever, I don't know, hid the body. And then before they called the police, and this is why the police are suspicious of them, because they're saying that there are discrepancies in the timeline that they told them and what they said happened. That's what's made the police suspicious. Because the problem is, if you tell lies, you always have to remember what you've said, don't you? Because it's easy to trip up. Whereas if you tell the truth, you're always saying the same thing. So I think the police probably were suspicious from day one. Who knows? But you can't say the police haven't tried to find Gus. They've been out there. They've spent thousands, if not, God knows how much the whole operations cost. People have searched for Gus. And it's come up with nothing, and that's why the police have come to this conclusion. They don't believe he wandered off because there's just nothing, none of his clothes have been found, no tracks, there was one footprint found, wasn't there? So the police have not announced this just for the sake of it. The police, to me, once they announced they thought it was a major crime and someone from the family is involved, they wouldn't have done that unless they are absolutely convinced. And there's probably more that they know, but they just don't have concrete, you pardon the pun, they don't have concrete evidence.
The missing boy's parents, Gus's grandparents, Josie and Shannon Murray, have said through their separate lawyers that they have fully cooperated with the investigation. The 2-day search has yielded no new clues about Gus's whereabouts, but investigators will likely return here to the state's mid-north to investigate further in the near future. For now, major crime detectives will return to Adelaide to plan their next course of action. Brenton.
Samantha Hogan, thank you.
Yes, so very sadly, unfortunately, their searches haven't yielded anything so far. But I don't think they're going to let it go now. That they'll just keep going back. And they're probably hoping that one of the GMAs will, give in. Will crack it away. They're hoping that they'll crack. I don't think Josie will crack somehow. I think if anyone cracks, it'll be Shannon. But she's probably terrified of Josie. I would be. I just think Josie, I'm sorry, but I do. Josie looks absolutely terrifying. I wouldn't want to argue with her, that's for sure. Well, let's just have a look at this. So if you were Shannon, and Shannon is still, as far as I know, Josie's wife, even though Josie transitioned, they are still together, or at least living together. It's maybe a situation of convenience, maybe not a romantic type relationship. I have no idea. But also, I think Josie is her property, isn't it? I think it's her who inherited it. So she's the one with the power in more ways than one. She's the one with the power as far as, physical power is concerned. She's a very physically imposing woman, isn't she? But also she's the one with maybe the financial power, because she actually owns the homestead. And of course, remember, it was said that Jessica's husband, Josh, Gus's dad, did not get on with Josie at all. And there were a lot of clashes between them, that Josie didn't think that Josie, who obviously wants to be accepted as a transgender woman, didn't seem to think that Josh was good enough for Jessica, because he was just a worker, just a worker on the farm. So she's got her own prejudices. Seems like that's what makes me angry, because if you want to be accepted for what and who you are, you have a right to that. But then you should always be accepting of other people, who they are, what they are. Doesn't matter that whether Josh is just a worker or whatever he is. Doesn't matter. He's the man that Jessica fell in love with, and parents like this, they can interfere. To me, I don't think you should ever interfere in your child's love life, even though I understand why you'd want to. If your adult child or teenage child brings home someone you don't approve of, and you may not approve of them from experience. Sometimes I expect there's probably those of you out there with adult children, I'm sure there's a lot of you who've experienced it. Your child brings someone home and you're like, what? Because maybe you can because you can see it differently. They're looking at this person through the rose-coloured glasses. They're in love. They don't see that maybe they're a bit of a bad boy or a bad girl, or they've got some mental health issues, or they've, I don't know, maybe something about them from, maybe they're a friend of a friend or whatever. But the worst thing you can do to your adult child is to express that, really, because you can sort of say, oh, you can do it in a discreet way. Have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? But as soon as you say, especially when they're younger, if you forbid them to see him, well, you can be sure the very next day they'll be sneaking around there. I've never had that happen with a partner. Well, a little bit with my parents. They were old-fashioned, But I remember when I was a kid, though, friends. There's always that friend that your parents can't stand, isn't there? You think they're great, but your parents think they lead you into bad ways. They're a bad influence on you. And I had those friends when I was a kid. But as soon as my parents would say to me, oh, you can't go around to such and such's house anymore, they're a bad influence, or blah, 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 you'd be straight away around there. You never go, sometimes you just have to face it. You're never going to stop people. Children and adults have to make their own mistakes, don't they? And sometimes it's not until you make those mistakes that you wake up to it, and you hope it's not too late and you can extricate yourself from a situation. But I forgot I'm waffling again, aren't I? I forgot why I started saying this. Oh yeah, so what I'm saying is, if Josie didn't like Josh and felt that he wasn't good enough for her daughter, but it's none of her business, is it? It's Jessica's life to deal with and make her own mistakes. What could Josie say? Like, she's lived half her life as someone she didn't really want to be. So you can't turn around someone then and say, oh, you should listen to me. We're all human. We all do things wrong. None of us take proper advice. It's only when we get older, and normally when we've got children of our own, and that we realise that most of the things our parents said were perhaps correct. Maybe Josh is no good for Jessica. Do you know what I mean? But he hasn't killed Gus, has he? So the bloody cheek of it, really, when you think about it. Criticising Josh because he's not good enough for Jessica. And now here's someone under bloody suspicion for murdering their own grandchild. Honestly, it makes my blood boil a bit, this. I'm starting to get very angry with these grandparents. Because not only they're putting their own daughter through hell, not only they know what happens to their grandson, who's dead, according to the police. They're putting their daughter through hell, and they're wasting police resources. Just own up to it. If it was an accident, own up that it was an accident. Bloody 75 years old, this woman is, and hasn't learned anything. 75 years old, give your daughter a chance at a life. Do you know what I mean? If something's happened, you don't want to spend the rest of your miserable life in prison. Well, you know, your daughter has got to spend the rest of her life knowing that you did something to her own son. You know, this the selfishness, honestly. Own up to it. You've made your mistake. Own it. Own up to it. And take the consequences that you're due. Don't keep... What are you trying to... You know, you're not going to have any life now anyway, because everyone thinks you did it anyway. Just own up to it. And you know, and the other thing I was thinking, what is life like in that house of an evening? So, right, if you think about your life, you know, you do your things in the day, whatever you do, whether you work or whether you're retired and you go shopping or you go for a walk or you have a club that you go to, you know, we all have some sort of a routine, don't we? And then the day goes on and then night time comes, and especially, I mean, it is hot there at the moment, but, you know, what do they do? I just have this vision of Josie and Mrs. Pepperpot, like in that house, because they're on their own in that sprawling place now, because Jessica's long gone, the daughter, and taken the other child with her. So it's just you, you know, these two sort of GMAs. No Gus, but the ghost of Gus will be around because they know what happened to Gus 100%. So what do they talk about? You just, you know, you just imagine, it reminds me of something from Silence of the Lambs, you know, with that guy when he was living in his mum's house, his mum's basement, making clothes out of skin and what have you. You just think, what do they talk about? Do they talk about Gus? They probably don't, because do you think the police might have planted bugs in their house? Possibly. They do that in America and in the UK. I don't know if they can do that in Australia or not. But when the police have been into that house, it's quite possible that they might have laid listening devices. So they'd probably be terrified of even speaking to each other in case they let something slip. And you just think, what they're doing there? So is, you know, are they watching the telly? Are they on YouTube? They could be watching me right now. Hello, own up. Tell the police what really happened to Gus. Don't keep trying to say that nothing happened. That would be my advice to you, Josie and Shannon, if in the outside chance they're ever watching. Just go and be honest. Do it for Gus. Do it for your daughter. You know, just, it's terrible what you're doing. What you're doing now is even worse than whatever happened to Gus. Because I presume you didn't do it on purpose. That's what I have to cling on to, because I can't even go there, think that somebody, that you would actually deliberately hurt this lovely little boy. So I have to believe that it was an accident. But what you're doing now is worse on every level. You know, every level it's worse. And it's worse for you because when the day comes, which won't be as far off as it would have been for Gus, because he had the whole of his life in front of him. You know, you're in your 70s. Maybe you've got another 20 years, but sooner or later you're going to go and meet your maker. What are you going to say about Gus? You know, how are you going to save your soul? Even if you manage to hang on and defeat justice in this world, how are you going to defeat it in the next one when nothing is hidden anymore? How are you going to do that? Think about that. Think about your soul. Think about your daughter and think about Gus. That's what I would say to them. If they were watching, which they're probably not, but I don't know, maybe they're mad on YouTube. Who knows? Maybe they love YouTube. So really, yeah, that's it. I don't think there's any more news than that. They're there. Let's have a look at this video. It's only a very short one. It's probably just a quick glimpse of The other thing I would say to you, Josie, you haven't done very well with your transition into a woman. A lot of people who transition, I don't know, they're just like, this is the least convincing woman I've ever seen, that's for sure. Well, I'll tell you what, the one over at that's murdered their family at the hockey rink, they're unconvincing as well. But, what do they want to live as a woman, or do they want to live as a transgender man? That is completely different, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people who are transgender, either to being a woman or to being a man, they want to live as that. They don't want the attention. They don't want, they try and look as natural as possible to the gender that they feel was their real gender. And, hermaphrodites have been around forever since, the Roman times. It is sometimes there is a physical problem that people have. Gender dysmorphia is a real condition, and it must be the most awful thing because, I think we all go through, like, I think especially when you're young, you go through times where you might think, oh, am I attracted to women or, men or both? I suppose these days think people are just greedy, think they can have whatever they want. But, then you you go through that sort of stage, mainly when you're younger, don't you? And then people tend to go one way or another, don't they? But not always. Sometimes people remain bisexual, and that's fine too. I mean, as long as it's consensual adults, it's fine. As long as it's open. The other thing I don't like hearing about people like Philip Schofield or Hugh Edwards, who get married, pretend they're normal, and not only that, are sniffy about other people, like Hugh Edwards, Mr. Prissy, Mr. Perfect. And Philip Schofield was another one. I've seen him interviewing people on Good Morning Britain and being really sort of sniffy on people that he thought were a bit loose in their virtues, or I don't know, the OnlyFans models, that Kerry Katona were, people who maybe were taking substances at some point, really down on people, judgmental. And there's him all the time, all those years, pretending he's straight, but really he was gay and deceiving his wife. When someone goes through years of being married and having children and pretending to their wives, do you think what a good liar they have to be to do that? Because quite often then, literally, I mean, I think Hugh Edwards is a good case in point, because Philip Schofield was a little bit effeminate, I suppose, and you could think, well, how did his wife not know? But I think Hugh Edwards really, he wasn't effeminate at all. There was no clues. So I just think, how did his wife feel when she found out? So I think if that was me, I'd be thinking back at all the times he said he was working late. So he's meeting young boys on the internet. What is he bringing home to you? Don't know anything about these boys that he's meeting. What's that? Is he bringing STDs home to you? Just apart from the actual being unfaithful, just all the medical implications that you might suffer because of what your husband is doing. And he's lying to you. How many lies must Hugh Edwards and Philip Schofield have told their wives? How many lies? You couldn't count them, could you? So I'd rather I respect somebody more who does come out and be gay or transgender. It's not what they are that bothers me, it's the deceit. So I forgot my story to say this now. So I don't know Josie as a person. Maybe Josie is a lovely person. Apparently they're very respected around that area, but I think Josie's like the queen bee of the area, isn't she? I was thinking about it. It's a bit like Erin Patterson, really. She's the money bags. She's got the power, the financial power and the physical power, because she's a very imposing physical figure. And people probably frightened of upsetting her. And, now this is coming out. They've sort of simulated all this outrage, of course, and contracted lawyers and this, that and the other. But I just think there's no way on this earth the police would be doing this unless they were pretty 100% convinced. Just looking for that last thing to prove it, which of course would be Gus himself, to prove it. Anyway, let's have a look at this. Yeah. They're stone-faced. I mean, you know, to be fair, she looks like she's been on steroids. I've never seen muscles like it. Oh my God, so muscly. For a 75-year-old, they're pretty impressive muscles, aren't they? Watch it one more time. I wonder if they'll find Gus. I wonder. Now, let's just look at the other side of it for 1 minute. If this person, Josie and Shannon, if they are innocent, it'd be awful, wouldn't it? To be accused of something that you're innocent of, and, you know, it really would be awful. But I just don't think. Oh, is she 6'5", Dartray? Is she 6'5"? Oh my God. Oh my God, I didn't realise she was quite as tall as that as well. So there you go, 6'5" and built like that with those muscles. I think Shannon is definitely being, Caitlyn Jenner. I think Shannon is definitely being controlled, don't you think? Oh, was it Shannon who got the... No, I thought... Oh, I don't know. Literally. I don't know. Maybe I need to look into that bit. I don't know the exact circumstances. But all I know is, one thing I do know is Shannon will be... she's going to be terrified of this woman. You wouldn't argue with her, would you? I wouldn't argue with her. I'd be too scared. But then, is Shannon ever left on her own at all? Because if she was left on her own, she could phone the police, ask the police to come and, or does Josie control everything? And of course, the other possibility is maybe it was Shannon that killed Gus, and Josie's covering up for Shannon. Maybe that's a possibility as well, eh? You know, we're looking at Shannon and thinking she just looks so bloody frail. Let's put this picture back up. You know, this is Shannon there. She looks so frail, you can't imagine that you should be scared of her. But maybe she's the one who did it, and maybe she controls Josie in an economic way, if that's true what you're saying in chat there. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, this is the situation so far. I just wanted to let you know the police are back there. They're looking into everything, but as far as I know, and I keep checking, I'm on the news every 5 minutes now trying to see. You know, it's just the same things that are coming up that they're searching, but nothing. Yeah, they're inspecting an outhouse, a water tank, other properties that are connected with this family, but nothing found so far. But maybe soon, hey, I hope so. Look at that boy's little face. Look at Gus's little face. I tell you what, if these women do know something, oh. Now, I do feel, I have this real bad feeling about this. All the weapons in the home and everything, do you feel that if the police get too close, there might be some sort of incident, you know? I don't know what would happen. I just wish they would just own up to it and, you know, say what had happened to Gus. And, you know, take what, you know, hopefully it was an accident. I expect this is sort of some of the questioning that's been made by the police, some of the way the questioning is going. I've seen it often enough on police interrogations. Oh, was it an accident? You know, like if somebody's not admitting to killing someone, but the police are 99% certain that they did do it. They go down that line, don't they? Look, you know, just tell me what happened. I'm sure it was an accident. I'm sure that's been tried on these ladies already. You know, come on, I'm sure it was an accident. It's better that you tell us about it now. It looked better than when we find Gus, and then it'll look like you did it on purpose. You know what the sort of thing I'm saying. I'm sure they've been down that line with these ladies. I don't know, I presume they've had them in for interrogation or... Well, they've never arrested them, though, having said that. They've only questioned them, haven't they? And we saw the questioning. Do you remember the interviews we saw with Erin Patterson at her home? You know, where she threw the phone at the police officer and said, oh, that makes your job easy. I bet it's been like this in this. You know, you just think, I bet there's been a real arrogance. You know, like, oh, well, you know, they'll never find Gus. But, yeah, wait till they get them down there. But if they only had something that would give them probable cause to arrest and get them into a proper interrogation, I'm sure that might help. Where is he? Where is this little baby? So what I'm going to be asking you, so we've got a few people, haven't we, at the moment, missing people. Of course, Nancy Guthrie, where is she? That's another all these mysterious cases. Nancy Guthrie. So she's the other kind of vulnerable, isn't she? She's the opposite end of the spectrum. 84 years old and ill. She's vulnerable in a different way than Gus is vulnerable. He's a 4-year-old boy that, you know, relies on the love of his family to survive, and looks like that ran out. And then, of course, we've got Jack and Lily Sullivan. I want to do another case on that, another video about that. Not that there's been any developments, but it's a similar sort of scenario, isn't it? Are the family involved in the disappearance of Jack and Lily? Because, you know, that's 2 children disappeared into poof. You know, have all these people been beamed up onto a Starship Enterprise? I mean, they haven't, have they? So, yeah. Okay. Anyway, so let's all pray. I'm going to be praying. I'm always praying for these people, but special prayers for Gus and Josh and Jessica, because they've lost their little boy probably to a member of the family. Seems like Josh was right to not get on with Josie. Seemed like Josh and Josie were clashing a lot, and I think Josh was right. But yeah, let's please look, prayers can't make things happen maybe, but at least it's some positive energy going out there, that the police just get that stroke of luck and find this little boy, find Jack and Lily. Thing is, and find Nancy Guthrie, because the problem with missing persons cases, they make everything so much difficult because there is no body, is there? And especially in Gus's case, where the police have said that they think he's dead. So I don't feel it's bad me saying that he's dead, because that's what the police have said. Just need to pray that he gets found. Anyway, that's all we can do. That's all we can do. Talk about him, pray for him, hope these people come to justice. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you for the candles. Thank you for the prayers. Thank you for caring about Gus and any other victim that we talk about. And I'll see you really soon in the next video, which hopefully will be able to tell you some good news about some cases. And until then, may your God go with you. Thank you so much. Please don't forget, hit like, subscribe, and press notifications. That's all I ask of you. Thank you. Bye.